Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this lesson we are going to dive into data binding in Angular, which is an essential technique that allows you to synchronize data between the component class and its template. Angular provides powerful ways to manage and display dynamic data in your applications. Today we will integrate these concepts into the task list and task form we've been working on. So what is data binding? Data binding in Angular allows communication between the component, your logic, and the template, the user interface or the view. It can be one-way data binding when data flows from the component to the template. Also two-way binding when data flows in both directions, allowing changes in the template to reflect in the component and vice versa. And you have event binding, triggers component methods in response to user events like clicks. And let's see how we can implement these types of data binding in our task manager application. Let's open Visual Studio Code now, and let's take a look at the structure once again. Now, to simplify things, instead of two separate components, we'll create a single component that contains both the task input form and the task list, making the whole structure easier to understand. So later, when you're more comfortable with Angular concepts, we can break it into multiple components. Now first, let's copy everything from the task form HTML and paste it inside the task list component HTML, right above the task list container. Let's save the task list component, and let's delete task form component. If we need it later, we'll add it. Now we need to do a little cleanup, so go to the app modules and let's remove the task form component from here as well. And last thing, we need to go to app component HTML, where we display it and remove it from here. Next, we'll use event binding to allow the user to add tasks through the form. And when the form is submitted, we'll trigger a method in the component to add the new task. Before we do that, let's do a little tweak to our form HTML. We actually are not going to use a form for now, since we are going to use ng model, two-way data binding. So let's remove the form, save the HTML, and let's switch over to the TS file. Now here, let's add a new property or variable called new task, and which will be of type string, and let's set it up as an empty string. Next, let's create add task method that adds the new task to the tasks array, and do a condition and basically check if the user has typed something in the task input field. The trim removes any spaces before and after the task name, so we are making sure it's not empty spaces. If the user typed something meaningful, it continues, otherwise the function will stop here. It's always a good practice to comment your code, both for you and other people that will potentially work on the same project. So now let's add the new task to the task list. And we are going to use the existing tasks list to push the new task that user will submit. And we will push a new object with the same key name, the same structure as our tasks, but we'll get the value from the new task variable that we already created. So far, what this is doing is if the task is valid, not empty in this case, this will add the tasks to the task list. It uses the push method, which adds a new item to an array. Here we are adding an object with property name and value of new task, where new task is the task name the user entered. And finally, let's clear the input field by setting new task variable to an empty string again, so the user can type another task if they want. So let's do a quick recap. So we check if the user typed something meaningful. Then we are adding the new task to the list of tasks, and finally we are clearing the input field so the user can type the next task. Now let's go to the task form HTML file and modify our form HTML. Now let's add the ng model, also known as banana in the box, for two-way data binding. And let's set the new task variable that we created in the logic. And as you can see here, we have an error. We need to go back to the app modules and add the forms module from Angular Forms, and also add it to our imports. Now we can go back to the HTML and add the click event and use our add task method that we created to our button, and this is called event binding. And we can execute our add task method that we created when a user clicks this button. And now let's do a quick check. Everything looks fine. Now let's do ng-serve, start our development server, and check this out in the browser. Let's enter a new task and try and add it to our existing list. And we can see that when we click the button, a new task is added to the list. So for now, this works as it should. The field also clears. So what we did here is the tasks are stored in an array called tasks. We use a loop in the template, ng4, to display each task from the array in the list. The input field is connected to the new task variable using ng model. So whatever the user types gets stored in new task. And when the form is submitted by clicking the add task button, the add task function is called, the method we created. So that's all for this video. See you in the next one.